Drive first caught my attention because of its unique concept. A survival game where you drive around in a car in the Pacific Northwest, except the twist is that the landscape is ravaged by some kind of supernatural anomaly, Stalker style. Sounds amazing, right? Unfortunately, the road is anything but smooth. It all starts when you're out for a drive. You ignore the warning signs that litter the road, telling you that you should, in no uncertain terms, proceed. And you get sucked into a giant orange anomaly. Anyone familiar with games like Stalker or Metro Exodus will be familiar with the strange goings on here. Next thing you know, you've been spat out into the Olympic Exclusion Zone, some kind of alternate reality where things are very much not okay. You find your way to the car that you'll use throughout the game, and then, over the radio, you get into contact with a group of individuals who will guide you to a safe house that will serve as the gameplay hub to the game. I use the term safe house loosely because it's actually a rundown car garage. From here, you'll be able to repair and refuel your car, craft new tools and materials, heal yourself, fabricate new workshop items, and plot your routes around the Olympic Exclusion Zone before you head out into the wastelands. This is also where prominent story beats play out, as your newfound radio companions talk about the mysterious events that are going on around you. But this is where things start to go south, because while maintaining an air of mystery around how the Olympic Exclusion Zone came to be and what's actually going on is important to keep players intrigued, it leans a little too far and becomes convoluted. For example, your radio pals will be spitting out words like anchors to talk about science equipment and anomalies found in the zone without giving you the context to these objects, and from the word go, the info dump is very overwhelming and hard to follow. Pacific Drive plays like a survival roguelike. You'll plot your route on the map in the garage before driving around the zone, getting out of your car to loot abandoned buildings for their crafting materials, and you can craft tools to help too, like a saw that you can use to cut up objects such as cars for materials that you can acquire. Then you return to the garage to upgrade your car with better materials that can withstand more radiation and don't degrade as quickly. But once this is done, you're ready for your next outing. It's a simple gameplay loop, and not all that exciting either. Some of these voyages will include main story missions that progress the roughly 12-hour narrative, but you're also free to set out and just gather materials from the surrounding areas. The more missions you do and the further the plot advances, the further you can explore into the zone. There are varying biomes in Pacific Drive, but you'll find yourself most often just driving down a road, getting out of your car at every building, looting, and then continuing. Unfortunately, this gameplay doesn't hold your attention, and you'll find the tutorial lasting hours before you really understand what you're doing and how to do it. Each time you set out on a drive, for instance, you plot a route from the garage's map. But then you have to keep track using the computer in your car while you're out exploring, and depending on the distance to your destination, you will likely pass through connecting areas and have to find the exit marked on the map to progress to the next area, close in on where you're ultimately heading. When you reach the exit, you hit a loading screen that will load the next area. In order to jump back to the garage, you need to fuel an arc device in your car. It's a machine that's in the passenger seat, and then you drive into a giant portal. You'll also encounter enemies along the way in the form of machines/UFOs that can pin themselves to your car, shorting its electronics, or grab your car with a magnet and pull you somewhere else on the map. These two early game examples are symbolic of how Pacific Drive's systems and design are frustrating in practice. You'll often find yourself looting a building, only to come outside and find your car being dragged hundreds of meters just for giggles. Pacific Drive is such a great concept, but it feels like developer Ironwood Studios' first game. And it is. So, for a debut game, it has a lot going for it. When you're driving the car, you can turn it on and off, put it in park, open all the doors, use the headlights and store things in the back. This might sound basic, but very few games give you this sim-like experience without going too far into simulator territory. The graphics are good too, and the audio design and voice acting is fantastic. But at its core, Pacific Drive is simply too complex too quickly. You're slapped with systems and processes, told how to craft this and that in basic terms, but not really shown, all while the story is yelling at you about anomalies, and the pacing just feels off. Then when you add in the fairly drab and boring gameplay loop and enemy shenanigans, you're left with a feeling that it was all so close to greatness. And unfortunately, in practice, Pacific Drive just isn't a whole lot of fun. And it's not interesting either, mostly because the story is delivered largely via radio while you're trying to navigate the zone's dangers, and so you're focusing on staying alive rather than following what's being said. And there are logs to be picked up throughout the journey, but again, it's also overwhelming that you'll struggle to keep up. So, in the end, while Pacific Drive isn't a terrible game, it's certainly a letdown. It's a great effort for a debut game, but it also has stiff competition from a plethora of other survival games, making it fall a bit short of expectations. It's worth checking out if you're a die-hard crafting fan, but those looking for story or an easy to play experience should look elsewhere. Vauxhall Smash gives Pacific Drive 6 out of 10. Pacific Drive has a unique concept and good graphical and audio design, but overwhelming and convoluted game mechanics and story means that you're left with a boring gameplay loop that feels awkwardly paced.
You see that glowing pillar into the sky? Drive into it. Yes, it looks like hot death, but it's so much better than getting scrambled by the instability.